the little vehicle that's at the head of this column. We move on to another infantry support tank, the Matilda II, designed and built in 2 years, so very impressive scale, by a brand new manufacturer, the Vulcan Works, that had made engineering or mainly railway carriages before that. And they are going to be the tank. The Second World War starts off not like that at all. It's a war of movement, speedy movement. So we need cruiser tanks as well. They are being designed, and we are so lucky in the Second World War as well, because of course we go to America in 1940 and we try and buy tanks off the Americans. And one of the first tanks we buy is this M3 Grant tank. Called the Grant in British service, it's called the Lee in American service, slightly different model. Now we are so desperate to get tanks into service because the famous shipbuilder, armaments manufacturer, Vickers designed a tank called the Valentine, and that tank is put together from other models, and they offer it to the Army in 1939. And we accept it as another version of an infantry tank. Now we're lucky here today, we've got John Pearson's service in many different roles before the end of the war, including for the first time floating tanks. We end up using them for training on. They're not used on D-Day, we use the Sherman because it's more effective that way. Now if you can pick them out as they go round, if I say it's another green tank, you're not going to know, are you? But one of the tanks down there, following the Valentine, is the Churchill. And again, it's another infantry tank. It's a tank to support the infantry in the attack. And this is going to be our third model infantry tank. Because of the fighting in France, they changed its specification after 1940. It was going to look a bit like a First World War tank when it was first designed. We make the first two models. This is coming round now is the Mark III model. A genuinely rarity here. Only 600 of these are made. It's with a 2-pounder gun. It ends up with a howitzer in the hull as well. We get rid of this on the Mark III. We put a 6-pounder gun on and then a bored out 6-pounder that's called a 75mm. That was a tank that was nearly cancelled. When they first gave the manual out to the troops with the first Churchill tanks that had been built, it said on page 1, don't worry, we know this has got problems, but we think you better have it now just in case. We get it better. In Normandy, thicker armour on the front than a Tiger I, so it's very well protected, firepower not so good. Now we've also got out here today as well, we've got some other things. Britain was great with wheeled armour. It was, again, an American armoured car. We always liked the American kit, but the Daimler was oodles better than the M8 Greyhound. The British Army did not want the Greyhound. Paper-thin armour underneath. Not particularly good across country, and only a few units used that Greyhound. 6x6, all driven wheels on it, 37mm gun. By the time it comes into service, it was supposed to be a tank destroyer, doesn't really. Vehicles, thick armour, 78mm of armour on the front of this Matilda. The German anti-tank guns could not go through that frontal armour. And again, at the attack at Arras, the British attack in 1940 at Arras, it scares the life, which you can see still down there at the other end of the field. Same issues as the Sherman. There's not enough. This one's got a radial, it's got an aeroplane engine. the R975 engine in the back. There's not enough aeroplane engines to power the vehicles around. So the Americans end up putting different models of engine, and they're learning how to do casting. They've got the French designs the turret, and we'll put the radio in this new enlarged turret on the top. And that's what makes it a Grant tank in British service, as opposed to the American Lee with the bigger cupola. Now this Grant, it's new here at the museum. It's part of the Bill Bannister's collection. It's come from Australia. When we realised the Shermans are arriving in numbers, Grant tanks that have seen service in North Africa. Churchill, as I mentioned, it first goes out to North Africa. It sees service at the back of the... We are about to get back. We've been keeping going with some of the Churchills. We keep tanks in production just to keep the factories going that we're only going to use for training, which sounds a terrible waste at the time, but then by 44 we're starting to get our act together again. One of the tanks that's going to come into service is the Cromwell, the version of it there called the Centaur in the middle of the mound there, the Comet behind based on the Cromwell, and these end up being rather impressive tanks when we get going again. Infantry tank like Churchill, you get the impression it's a bit solid, and it's solid because if you're helping the infantry advance, you're bound to get once the infantry have broken through. And so with those two vehicles there, we need a more powerful engine. So a guy called Rumpty Rowbottom has got a Spitfire engine from a crash. He works on it and he gets it to the point that we can put it in a tank, and they call that the Meteor. 680 horsepower, fantastic power for a tank to be able to go off and do the business at speed, which again, and equally, because it's more powerful, we can add a bit more armour to it. Good as a small anti-tank gun, but really this is a vehicle about reconnaissance and reporting back. In fact, some of these, they took the turrets off, so the guys inside had good all-round visibility on that Daimler there, shorn-off Daimlers, SOD. Bullet on the front, 50 caliber, normal bullets on the side, but very thin armour underneath. And the downside of that, if you are reconnaissance, you're the vehicle that might be going over there, meeting the mine first. So American crews, 4-man crew, they sometimes put sandbags across the floor of this vehicle to give them a bit more protection that way. 37mm, size of the hole at the end of the barrel, small anti-tank gun, outclassed quite quickly, but can still do damage against soft-skin vehicles, etc. 2 guys in the turret, commander and the gunner, driver, radio operator down the front. When the breakouts have occurred, actually 55 miles an hour, that's a fair old lick for an armoured vehicle. So they could travel good distances. Now coming round is what many of you you think it's a Cromwell tank. It's part of a cruiser tank series that Britain puts together, hoping it's going to go into service in about 1942 to replace the Crusader tank we see now in the Western Desert. The tank design department of Woolwich comes up with the turret. You can see the rivets, it's on the framework. And they build 3 different 400 horsepower, a bit more than that. They build these with the idea that if the Meteor engine's ready, we'll take out the Liberties and put those in the back instead. So this version with the Liberty engine is called the Centaur. About the size of the gun, well, we'll see that later in the day, size does matter, but that was a cracking use of these fast Cromwell tanks. In the background, we're designing a fantastic tank. You see that later today. Not going to be ready yet, so we do this as an interim model. This has got Cromwell parts on it, but things as well that we've been able to pick up on during 1943. In other words, we need a more powerful gun to penetrate the armour of German tanks like the Panther. This is its effect in many ways. Thick armour on the front, much better in terms of protection. It's got a phone on the back, something we learned from the Desert War. Let the infantry be able to talk to the commander inside. And we make these and they get out to British forces in December of 1944. Some units, 7th Armoured Division, starting to convert over to a British tank to be built with that vertical plate on the front so we can fit a piece of machine gun. When you look afterwards, why didn't you use nice sloped arm?